Before we get started, make sure you hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons, and be sure to check back regularly so you don't miss out.
RNA comes from something which is not like eukaryotic. This is prokaryotic, prokaryotic, so now this is mentioned a word that I was looking for, endosymbiotic relationship. What that means is that you got two things working in harmony with each other. One is a battery which feeds off the matrix from the other cell, which is double membrane cell, and the cell is getting energy from this mitochondria. So the theory by Margaret Margulis, who you probably remember around the 1950s, suggested that a double membrane cell swallowed this mitochondrial battery. How did it do that?
Because there's been trillions and trillions of them.
This is one of the theories, but you still end up with multiple gaps. How did this double?
Gaps, but
just to say, it's not plausible.
We had many more gaps.
In order to explain, in order to explain this, you end up with more questions than you do to say something simple, which is like God, the Creator created the creation. You don't need science. It's just common sense here. I'll give you more problems now. Let's say this cell.
Hang on. Let's go back a step. So you said we get more questions. Fine. Let's have more questions. Because questions can lead to answers.
Yeah, of course they can answer. Yeah. So okay. Even if you go to the beginning of science as well as now, let's just start from the beginning. Merton's thesis. Do you know what Merton's thesis is?
No.
Merton's thesis is the idea that science developed because men believed in God. Because the world is not disorderly. It runs on order, and because we have order, we can make hypotheses. In disorder, we cannot make hypotheses. So because of religion and the belief of God that there is a coordinator, one who originates everything, that we expect to see patterns, and this is what we see, and thus we can do science. Without religion, science doesn't have a leg to stand on. One second. But this is what I'm telling you, the hypothesis. I've just told you, because in a random world, you don't expect to see patterns, do you? Let's answer this one, because
yes, you do expect to see patterns.
How?
Because that's how randomness works.
No, it doesn't.
Random doesn't mean disorganization.
Random. No. Have you ever seen? I'll give you an example. I take like 500 books, rip into pieces, throw up in the air. Will it land as a single book, new book?
500 won't, but 5 trillion, you might get a few sentences.
I'm not talking about sentences. We're not sentences. We are human structure.
We are sentences.
No. We are very sophisticated. You know, this is again. You were saying reductionist, but it seems like you were falling into this. We're sophisticated beings. We're based on intelligibility. Our DNA, human structure.
I don't think it is intelligent.
Have you studied biology?
No.
This is why I can't relate to you. When you study biology and you see the DNA, the human sequencing of our structure, you see it's so impossible that we came by randomness, because
it's not randomness, it's however complicated it is.
We say it's guided. We say it's guided. It cannot come.
If it were guided, why would we have the evolutionary inconsistencies that we have?
Like what? Do you know what the Cambrian Okay, look. What inconsistency are you talking about?
Well, you know more than me, but across the animal kingdom, we've got all sorts of. So evolution would suggest that as animals mutate, whatever is doing best at the time is then going to go on. But that's not a perfect line, right? So there's things that will become useful and then die out, and useful and then die out.
Great.
So that's why we have things like the appendage. The giraffe has a valve which goes from its neck down to its heart, then back out to its neck again.
How did that happen by accident?
It didn't happen by accident.
Exactly,
It
it's
happened because
guided.
No, it's a ridiculous valve.
Okay, sorry, 1 second. First we were talking about how A got there, but we've moved to evolution, which shows how A became B. We haven't even got past. Sure.
Okay, so
because evolution.
Talk about the giraffe. I'd like to hear your.
So now we've moved to the next point, but we haven't closed the first point, which is how A got there. Yeah, we're talking about how organic matter came from inorganic matter. That's how A got there. Evolution is how A becomes B. Did you follow? Now, for example, one of the arguments of evolution is that we kind of like came down in a cascade like a vent from a universal common ancestor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the problem is, which I was trying to explain to you, you have to explain how the cell became multicellular, how it gained reproduction abilities. That's a massive problem. And not only that, what we have in terms of the fossil record is very poor to substantiate the evolutionary theory. Why? Is you have the Cambrian explosion. Now the Cambrian explosion, you've heard of it. What do you recall? I don't expect you to know off the top of your head. What do you recall of the Cambrian explosion?
It's something like a mass discovery of fossils
Of
at a
complex
certain
life,
Yeah.
with no precedent, no lower animals that join to it. What, do you understand?
But I believe
There's no match. It's a massive gap.
There's a gap
You
in our
believe in
knowledge
evolution,
so far.
but you
don't
made
believe
the
there's anything which
supposition,
can be
right?
filled in.
But you've made the supposition. You
Yes.
based, yeah, exactly. This is the point that we're making.
And that's far more
No, it's
convincing to me
not.
than a
To,
text.
to say that, no, don't forget the text. We haven't got that. Your argument is something came from nothing, which is more absurd and ludicrous than saying that something came from something.
Well, even that argument would suggest that the creator would have come from something.
No, because it's like saying who baked the baker. Do you understand?
But then
Do you
where
follow?
does the creator
I'll
come
expect.
from
I'm
to
expect.
create
Yeah,
the
this is what I'm just
universe?
saying. Who baked the baker? Tell me why there's such a nonsensical question.
Who baked
The baker.
The baker isn't baked.
Exactly,
But the baker was
God
birthed.
isn't created.
But the baker was
That's what I'm saying.
birthed.
God is a creator, but He Himself is not created.
So
So
that-
the question here is called a sophistry. On the face of
But
it, it looks
I
like
can use
what's
that
it-
same
what's
argument
it?
to you. Could you say God wasn't created?
I'm giving
then
you the
I can
answer.
say that same thing to you.
Yeah,
You're saying, well,
I'm giving you the answer. That's what I'm saying.
That's
I'm
the same
giving-
something came from nothing argument.
What's your name? Hamza.
Sean.
Sean, Hamza, nice to meet you. I'm explaining to you that the creator by itself is not created. That's not one of his attributes. It's a false attribution. Like the baker is not baked. So you can't say who baked the baker. Who did the bachelor marry? These are sophistry. This is sophistry. Who did the bachelor
that's a
marry?
weak
Do you
argument.
understand? Do you understand who did the bachelor marry?
I don't understand where this is going.
Exactly, that's the problem. The bachelor by definition is one who is not married. So me saying who did the bachelor marry is a nonsensical question. God by definition is uncreated. He is independent. He does not have a creator.
That-
Do you understand?
I understand your point. I disagree with it.
Why?
Because I think that's applying. I think that's
Logic.
a blind argument
How is it blunt?
because it's the same thing. You can't apply the flip argument to do different things. You can't say to me, "Well, how did the universe come from nothing?" Well, we needed something to presuppose that, and then say, "Oh no, but God didn't know," because that's silly to ask that question.
I'm not following your argument.
Do you see what I'm trying to say? I can't explain that in better words.
Do you see what I'm saying though? Something comes from something, yeah? God, the creator.
You could say though that something could be something we don't yet comprehend. We're learning things that we didn't ever think were possible out of ideas.
Have you heard
So
of
why
the
is
theory
it
called
to
the
be
Big
a
Bounce?
god?
The Big Crunch, the Big Bang, Big Bounce.
Big Bounce,
I maybe years ago I come
The Big
across
Bounce is an idea about why don't we know anything before the Big Bang? Where did this come from?
Yeah.
It's that once we reach total heat death universe,
it. Yeah.
there'll be
All
one
laws
point
of nature
which
break
has
down.
More gravitational pull than the rest
Yeah,
of it,
yeah.
and that will become the new centre, and everything else is pulled towards that.
Mm.
This is unlikely, but it's a theory.
Look at the laws. I know it's similar to what Stephen Hawking said in A Brief History of Time.
And then in that singular point,
all laws of nature break
information
down.
is destroyed.
Exactly.
And then therefore we never know before that.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Where did this information come from? Nothing. Where did your
It's always
DNA
there.
come from?
It's always there.
Where did
just
all
at
this?
a
This is why I
certain
started the conversation. Look, where does all this sophistication? It seemed like an easy statement, but I had some logic behind it. Where does all this sophistication, geometry, symmetry come from? Randomness?
Okay, this sounds silly, but
Like-
I don't believe in the sophistication. It's not that sophisticated.
Sophistication. You don't believe?
I think to our human brains it's sophisticated.
Huh.
But if I was to get a dog to look at a watch,
Right.
and the dog was to predict what, and the hands were going everywhere, it wasn't even following a pattern. And I asked the dog to predict what was going on. The dog wouldn't have a clue. But a human might look at that and it'll be
No,
like...
a
Fibonacci
dog has limited understanding of the
As do
world.
we.
Yeah, we have limited, exactly. We have limited understanding of it. But what we do know from our patterning is that something cannot come from nothing. You know, it's a very hard supposition to hold by. Do you get it?
Yes, I understand.
But this is
that.
what you stand on.
But then that is...
Yeah, and I'm not mocking it, but sometimes we find atheists mocking theists who say that something came from nothing. You get it? But when we examine it, it seems like they're not standing on
I
anything.
understand that there is belief to my position as well, in the same way that there's belief in Islam. But to me, that is a more, it feels more easily believable. To me, that's far more convincing.
Well, something comes from nothing.
Yes,
No.
because to me,
But how would you
that's
prove
not.
that?
Hang on.
To me, that same something comes from nothing is in both categories. Because I don't agree with the philosophy that you said with the baker and who baked the bacon.
That's not philosophy. That's language. It's called sophistry. Like I asked you, do you remember seeing the triangle circle? It's a nonsensical. It's paradoxical. Creator is the one who is by definition.
That's paradoxical.
No. Have you ever seen a triangle circle or married bachelor?
Again, well, then you can't apply it like that.
It's paradoxical.
You've applied the triangle circle thing to God.
No,
So then
by
you're
definition,
believing
a
that
creator.
that's nonsensical.
By definition, a creator, God is the one who is uncreated. Do you understand? By definition. So
I
then,
understand what you're
so
saying.
once
I
again,
don't
one of the
subscribe
attributes.
to that.
Yeah, I do. That's why I'm explaining. My position is to be logical. If I believe in a God who is uncreated, it will be nonsensical, paradoxical to ask who created the uncreated. In the same way as me asking you who married the bachelor, or have you seen that triangle square? Do you understand? My position is fairly logical and consistent, whereas your position is the one I'm trying to understand. How does something come from nothing? This is the first question. And then the next question was, how does that life reproduce? Yeah? And then, it was how does organic matter come from inorganic matter? The next one was, how does A become B in the process of evolution, considering things like the Cambrian explosion? There's many more arguments, like the presence of complexity and so other ones. So when we examine this, sure,
I have a question for you.
I may know the
So,
answer. I probably not.
something comes from something. What's to say that has to be a god? Are you open to the idea that it could come from something that we don't yet comprehend?
So even if you're to be logical, yeah, for example, something comes from, let's say, I don't know, you're just this being that it created, yeah? Because we can give it that attribute. If we are creations and that thing created us, then we can give the attribute of creation, right? Yeah? If, for example, that we are intelligent, this intelligence didn't come from nowhere. So we can attribute intelligence or knowledge to that God, right? So a creator who's knowledgeable, and one can keep
disagree
going.
with you there.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree. I'm just showing you the consistency of it. But why would you disagree? If knowledge doesn't come, or does you believe knowledge comes from non-knowledge?
We are attributing knowledge to randomized mutations. I like to go this.
No,
back to
not
the idea of
mutations.
giraffe.
We're saying a creator. If a creator exists, the point is that you don't. How do you call a God? That's the original question. Do you understand? This is the lady's question, your partner's or your friend's
Let's
question
look at
was.
the idea of
Do you understand?
distributions
So
and
it's like when
things
you suggest, okay, something did create, then give it the attributes. You're not left with just a creator. You're left with all the definition of what God is, but we're scared to use the word God because we grow up in a secular society. That's the truth. It's only because we're in a secular society, it's so trendy and fashionable. Back 100 years ago, no one would have argued this, by the way. Yeah, it's only because it comes so trendy, yeah, to be secular and atheist and mock.
Literacy rates have also gone through the roof, and I think that's
No problem. But the most scientific men have been believers of a God. You understand?
yes, but then because that was trendy then,
Huh?
and that was trendy then.
Yeah, exactly. No problem.
What? The fact. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
No, you carry on.
I think the fact that you can accurately predict someone's religion based on their birthplace is evidence that that belief structure is enforced.
One of the
by
strongest
childhood.
evidences, yeah, that we say in Islam is something called fitra. Now, fitra is natural disposition. Now, Oxford studies have shown that if you were to take babies, by their nature, they end up believing in God. But why? Because they look around and see everything has a purpose. Babies, you could type this in Google whenever you have time, yeah? Babies have this predisposition of believing in God. And they have other predispositions as well, as language, picking up order, many other things as well, yeah? Question is, how are they predisposed to this? They didn't acquire this from family, and we believe this in Islam. The Prophet Muhammad says that every child is born upon fitra. Fitra is this natural disposition. Anyway, in short, I'm just going to give you a summary because there's so many other questions, but you guys maybe walk away, think a bit about it. you have, you know, we have some time, be inquisitive. We in Islam, we believe that there is a God, and that God, He created with us with purpose, not for any reason, no reason. We have to have purpose. Just like everything around you has a purpose, we in Islam believe we have a purpose, and that is to please our Creator in the way that He told us, not the way we think. I don't go to my employer and say I'm going to work how I want to work. My employer tells me how I should work, and I agree to that. This is the contract I have with my employer. Same thing with religion. We believe in Islam, God created us. He gave us the prophets to show us how we should worship Him, and along with the prophets they were given guidelines, whether it was the Torah or the Quran. And we believe the Quran is the final message and the final book from God Almighty, from the final prophet, the Prophet Muhammad, who is sent to the whole as mankind as a mercy unto mankind. And the Prophet Muhammad, he called the people unto Islam. This is our position. Anyway, you lot, have you got Quran by any chance? You have one. Yeah. Take some time, read it. You know. Yeah. Okay. Look, it's nice speaking to you guys. Take care.